So let's talk about the types of testing we can do. The first one I would like to talk about is black box testing. So we'll see in a minute what a VA is and what a pen test is, but both can be black box, gray box, or white box. So a black box testing is when you have close to no information about the systems you're going to attack. It could be like, here's an IP address, you're allowed to attack this, and that's it. So you don't know what you're going to do, okay? Or you have an IP address range, go and attack this. And this test is to represent an external user, maybe a user from the internet trying to attack a website, or maybe an internal user, so just a normal user in your organization trying to break the mail server, for example. White box, also there are some variations like glass box or crystal box, but white box is like the opposite. So you have keys of the kingdom before you even start your assessment. It's very, very good in a way that it's much easier for us to find more vulnerabilities and more problems, right? So we get full like root access to the systems. We get like the database, the DB accounts, and so on. So we are not trying to break into a system. We're trying to find problems with the systems. So we go faster when we have, we also have like a source code, access to source code when it's available. So, and the goal is to test the system like an administrator, like a developer would do. Gray box is kind of in between. So you have some kind of access, but not everything. So for example, if there's a given network where we have to pen test 5 boxes, maybe we don't have accounts on these boxes, but we can go past the firewall, for example, or we can log into the database with minimal accounts so we can log the things we're doing and so on. So it's kind of in between. And we'll talk about them more during the presentation. I'm going to talk about them, not us. Okay, so types of assessment. The first one, a vulnerability scan, okay? It's not a vulnerability assessment. So I've heard terms like technical VAs, technical vulnerability assessment. Please stop using technical VAs, because if it's not technical, tell me what it is, okay? It's always like paper exercise, nah, okay? So it's not a vulnerability assessment. Somebody pointing a tool to a box or to a network saying, find all the vulnerabilities. You find this much when there are that many vulnerabilities, okay? But it's a good tool for us, that we use them all the time to discover known vulnerabilities, the easy stuff, the low-hanging fruit, okay? They save us lots of time because we don't have to spend like hours and hours trying to find, like, you know, to send different values to a system and so on. So, but they are only effective against some types of vulnerabilities, and that's a key thing. Like a pen tester would know that a scanner is good for this, but okay for that, but not good at all for these types of attacks. And that's where people get misled, because if you go to a conference something and then you talk to vendors, they'll tell you that their tools can find everything, and it's not the case. I like talking to these guys. You should see me. Usually I wait after the big crowd has passed because they get red and they hate that I destroy their product in front of their clients. I always do, sorry. If you. So you need to understand their limits, and if you only use this, it creates a false sense of security. It's super important, okay? People think, oh, we're secure, we scan, we find some red things, we fix them, scan again, we're good to go. No, okay, so don't do that. So second type of assessment, like, is a vulnerability assessment. So that's one that we do a lot, okay? What is that? It's a snapshot in time of the current security posture of your network or system that we're testing. The goal is to find as many vulnerabilities as possible, okay? We're not trying to go very deep here. We're trying to find them all. So that's why, I don't know if you remember from my white box testing, when you have you already have like keys of the kingdoms. You already have full access to the system. When you do a vulnerability assessment, we're able to find a lot of vulnerabilities. Okay, so it's usually white box, as I just mentioned. And sometimes some people think that a VA, there are no exploitation involved at all. And it's not true, because we have to confirm a vulnerability we found, okay? Sometimes we have things called false positive. We think there's a vulnerability, but when you start looking, it's not true. And I know vulnerability scanners for web applications, they tend to have lots of false positives, while vulnerability scanners for servers like Nessus is the other way around. Like they're pretty good like at finding stuff. A pen test, a penetration test, is a bit different than a vulnerability assessment. You could argue that it's a subcategory of a VA, but still, it's more goal-oriented, okay? Pen tests would be things like, Dave, we are afraid of people stealing credit card numbers from our database. Okay, so that's the first thing you're afraid. We're afraid of people with no access to be able to gain limited access to the system. That's another one, and so on. We call them misuse cases, something that you're afraid of, basically. So we take this and we design some plans to try to attack these avenues. And if we get in a pen test, we try to go deep as we can, as deep as we're allowed to go, okay? But that's where you want to know, through a web application facing the internet, is an attacker able to get into our network and read our emails, for example? So that could be one of the goals. So a pen test is targeted, you go deep, but while we're doing this, we're trying to find as many vulnerabilities as we can, right? We're trying to help, right? But the goal of a VA is to find all vulnerabilities, while a pen test is to go deep. Typically, we'll try to do a pen test when you think your system is already pretty secure. Because, again, you think you've fixed all the vulnerabilities present in that system, then we go and we show you that padlocks can be open, right? Usually black box, I'll talk a bit about this later. And please allow us, pen testers, to use as many types of attacks as you can, okay? So if you say, Dave, you pen test this server, but you're not allowed to do this, that, then how good is my test, right? I can only do these kinds of attacks, while a real hacker, bad like that, right, can do everything they can. And, you know, I'm dressed like that, right, because we're here, but like you mentioned, we all put our hoodies and when we start hiking stuff. But that guy is freezing, right? He's probably freezing in a data center somewhere in the cold aisle, right? So it starts with the rule of engagement document. So basically, first meeting, we talk, we ask you questions. In that document, we'll have things like, for example, it highlights our planning. So you know we're doing it in a proper manner. So it highlights our methodology. Okay, not too bad, right? We have lists of stakeholders. So us, pen testers, contacts. If something goes wrong, they can call me anytime and I'll stop what I'm doing. But there's also like, you know, network guys, servers, the project managers, and so on. Everyone involved, everyone saying, go, Dave, you can destroy our server, right? The scope, it's not the whole organization. Usually it's like these servers only. And you have schedules, start this day and this day. There's I don't know, don't do anything this weekend because we're updating our servers, like we're patching or something like that. Misuse cases that I talked before, like things you're afraid of and we're going after, will be listed in the ROE. And a list of authorized attacks. Why we need security assessment? It's find out things you've overlooked, so like the example of debug mode in production. Confirm safeguards are effective. Dave, we have a padlock, we're safe. All you need is like a ratchet with like a half-inch socket and then you get in, right? So you don't even need to go past. And it's a funny analogy, but we see it all the time. You put a big safeguard, like a firewall. Hey, Dave, you need to be on the internal network in order to launch this attack. We have a firewall, we're safe, right? So our job is to show you that, no, you're not safe, and that's usually quite easy, especially if you go with a red team. It's not that difficult. We also, why you need security assessments is to evaluate existing processes and procedures. And that's something people don't think about. They'll say, oh, I want to see if an hacker is able to get in, but that's not the only purpose. Like, we want to see your process is broken. That's why the system is not patched properly, or you're missing training and so on. For compliancy, I mentioned this too. It's difficult. I get asked this question often. It's like, you guys do black magic. I have no idea if you're good or not, right? So if in your report you have security findings that are only from scanners, red flag, okay? You may not know, but for us it's quite obvious. So sometimes, let's say I'll do a pen test, and it's been done, there's been one done 2 years before. And I look at the results and I see all the results, all the findings can be found by tools. I'm like, oh, okay, it's not good. So that's one red flag. You do not understand the recommendations, another red flag. Good executive summary, put things in context and so on. It's a quality pen test. Somebody who's, I mean, it takes me like an hour to write like a paragraph. That's the hardest thing for me, is not to break into your system, is to tell you in nice words how to fix it, okay? And a presentation in person of the final report. Here's the report, pay me. No, you have to go in person, make sure. Personally, I like to do 2 presentations, one to the IT security team, so more detailed, technical and so on, and another one to the other stakeholders, so more higher level.
Got a query but short on time? Email your question to info@trm.ca. Just send us your message along with details of your preferred means of contact, and we'll be in touch as soon as possible. You'll find the address at our website, trm.ca.